Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jason.
You
Appreciate
bet,
it.
brother. Who else has got one?
Paul.
Paul.
What's up, Paul?
Hello there.
All right, dude. What do you got?
I was actually in the process of rewriting parts of it as I was listening.
Okay.
All right. I'm a husband and father who has watched while freedoms and liberties we once cherished more than life itself have been taken away, frequently given away because we didn't understand what we had or how to keep them. Educated in public schools, I was taught little about our rights, much less our responsibilities of living in a free country. That isn't until I accepted the challenge of reading the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence for ourselves. This is where I got to go back to where my handwritten notes, which are a little hard to read. After a successful 30-year career in IT, I've put aside that work to dedicate my life to helping others read and study our founding documents, the ones meant to protect our rights and liberties, to see how they're being violated, to be able to defend them, to teach the next, more importantly, to teach the next generation how to live free, to teach them how to protect the rights so they do not squander what we have, so the rights we leave to them as we have squandered the rights we inherited from others. Little rough, but first draft.
Okay. So, Paul, what you have there is you have a resume. You have a sales pitch, or what I would classify as a definition of purpose. So here's what I'm about, is essentially what you just read to me.
Yep.
What you don't have there is an origin story. There is no emotional connection. When you read that to me, I'm not drawn any closer to you. I might have an alignment with your belief already, but I'm not in any way drawn to you because you haven't really spoken to me and communicated the message other than saying, this is what I do, fact, 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 fact. So what I want you to do is go back to the drawing board with that, and I want you to think of a compelling story that would illustrate. So I might use something, let me make up something from a childhood, right? That you may or may not, that you come up with your own version of this, right? I was sitting there when I was a kid, and I was 8 years old. My dad brought me in, and he sat me down in front of the television, and he turned on the news, and I didn't know why he had me sitting there, but I'm looking up at the television and I'm watching these people tear apart this wall, and they're ripping it down. And my dad said to me, he said, son, I want you to pay attention to this because these are people who have been hurting and who long to live free. And they're desperate for it. And they're so desperate for it that they're actually tearing down the walls that used to keep them away from their friends and their families. And now they're going to be free. And I remember not even being old enough to understand it. But I just remember being so confused and not understanding how anybody could not live like we lived. I was 8 years old. And I mean, I didn't grasp this idea, this concept that there were people who lived in oppressed worlds, the people who didn't get to go to church where they wanted to and didn't get to choose the job that they had. And it was mind-boggling to me. And as I'm sitting there confused and trying to get a grip on what I'm watching, my father put his hand on my shoulder and he said, son, we live in the greatest nation the world has ever seen. And we are so lucky. And we got to make sure that it always stays that way. And I look at what's going on in the world today, and I look at the way we constantly move away from those principles and those values that really underpinned what is the greatest nation on earth, and it scares me. And I don't ever want to have to sit in front of a television with my son and tell him about what it used to be like to live free. Okay? Now, I completely fabricated that story from start to finish right here on the spot. I just made all that shit up. Okay?
Which is why we're here.
What's that? Yeah, okay, right? You see how much more compelling that story is. Mm-hmm. You see how yours is a list of facts and specific like wants and desires, and mine was a story that teaches you emotionally why I believe what I believe. Yeah, that's the difference between an origin story and creating emotional connection with your audience and with your prospects, and just simply telling them, this is what I believe, these are the facts, and this is what I do.